Welcome everyone to the Cardano Effect podcast, episode 13. The purpose of this podcast is to take high-level developer information and projects that are occurring within the Cardano sphere and break them down into bite-sized consumable pieces of information for everyday use. I'm your host, Philippe, and let's get this podcast started. I wanted to thank everyone for the support for the previous episode. We had a lot of great feedback, so we have a new special guest on today's episode. And once again, I'd like to remind you that Sebastian is not going to be here today. He is on a business trip, so he'll be here in a week or so. And it's just going to be Rick and I with a special guest. So keep on sending your questions to thecardanoeffect@gmail.com. Keep on putting your questions on Reddit. Keep on sending us comments in the YouTube section, contacting us on Twitter. And I see that people are following us on Facebook as well, which is wonderful. So I'm glad to hear that. And there are a lot of exciting things happening with the Cardano project. And the purpose of this podcast is to try and get different viewpoints from different sectors of what's going on within this project. So we're trying to get interviews from as many different viewpoints as possible, whether that be the developer side, whether that be the business side, whether that be the recruiting side, whatever sides exist within Cardano, within IOHK, and within Emergo as well. We're going to try to get people on to try to paint the picture as clear as possible for you. So that being said, I like to preface this by saying that none of what we say on this podcast is financial advice or should be taken as such. If you don't think that you're a good financial advisor, you need to find yourself someone who is qualified to do so. Please don't take anything as financial advice on this show. All we're doing here is talking about Cardano, a project that we're all passionate about. So with that being said, I am going to pass the mic over to Rick. Rick, how are you doing this morning?
Hey, good morning, Philippe. I'm doing great, and thanks for the introduction. So latest news in Cardano we have here is IOHK is having the summit in 2019 in Miami, Florida. It is 17 to 18 April 2019, and the announcement is that IOHK is pleased to announce the IOHK Summit will be taking place April 17th and 18th this year in Miami, Florida, USA. As an industry leader in functional programming, full verification, and proof-of-stake blockchains, IOHK will be hosting speakers, partners, and cryptocurrency experts from around the world at this two-day public event. So we hope to see you there. All right. So there's our news in Cardano. Now today our special guest is Mr. David Rountree. He's IOHK technical recruiter. A little bit of background on him. He has a mix of agency and in-house experience in recruitment strategy and talent acquisition. Since graduating from the University of Wolverhampton, UK, with a degree in business economics, he has supported startups and multinational companies in expanding their technical and business teams. So, good morning, Dave. How are you doing today? Where are you calling in from, sir?
Hi, Rick. I'm good, thank you. I'm in Ireland.
All right, you're calling in from Ireland, Dublin, Ireland?
Just outside Dublin. Just outside, in the sticks, as I say.
Ah, cool. Beautiful place. I had to stop through on there on my way back from Edinburgh as well as Philippe. And it was very beautiful. It's wintertime, but, I bet it's a lot nicer in the summer, yeah?
It is when you get some summertime here, yeah. But it's a lovely, lovely country.
Ah, that's cool. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've been in recruitment ever since I finished university. I fell into it and I really haven't found a way out of it, but I love it. It's a passion of mine and love the technical side of it. So I'm a technical recruiter here at IOHK, helping to build our teams and grow us and help deliver against strategic objectives.
So Dave, in the grand scheme of things, what does a technical recruiter do? How does that differ from just a recruiter? What exactly does that entail?
Interesting question, yeah. And some people in the industry have their own viewpoints on what a technical recruiter is, but really, for me, it is, as you'd expect from the title, understanding technology and how technology is applied to meet business objectives. I'm not going to tell you, I have done some of my background, but it's not what I do on a day-to-day basis. But my role is to connect with technical people and understand their background and experience and relevancy to roles that we recruit here at IOHK.
So, in terms of the projects or the products that Cardano has, so we have Plutus, we have Marlowe, we have Yellow, we have KEVM. Is there a specific product that you're aligned to as a technical recruiter, or are you recruiting for all of these, everything that Cardano has to do?
Work across the board. It depends where the demand is at the point in time. I'm not the only technical recruiter, so we do divide responsibilities up between us depending upon workload. We do tend to fall into certain areas of specialism. A colleague of mine has picked up some more of the roles on maybe Marlow and Plutus, but that'll be more on Cardano and enterprise. But it just depends at that point in time where the need is and how big it is, if you know what I mean.
I understand. So what's your strategy? What's the most effective way to get the up and coming talent? I mean, I know this is a decentralized project, so it must be very difficult to contact all these different talented people from all across the world. Is there a certain conference that you go to? How do you find the talent?
It was a very interesting question, and why we are decentralized and it opens up larger talent pools across the world. There's always demand for the best talent to bring into a business. To always obviously work hard and try and develop pipelines of candidates who are interested in for potential future needs. But sometimes when you've got urgent requirements on your doorstep, you need to deliver against those first and foremost.
So software engineering is a very high demand field. People who are skilled in software engineering, there's all these companies out there competing with them. How does that affect what you do?
Well, it's just always been a highly competitive market. You need to try and differentiate yourself from the others. Now, sometimes people just see it as it comes down to money, but realistically, organizations such as IOHK, we offer so much more. It's the projects that people are going to be working on and the difference that they're going to be making to the end result. So it's about getting that message across that we are different, and we can offer something very different to people coming in. Anybody can go somewhere and crank some code out, but if they want to be part of something and go on a journey, that's really what we are offering software engineers when they come and join IOHK.
So what kind of qualifications should someone have that's the type of person you're looking for? Would it just be a general purpose programmer who's willing to go out on an adventure, or are you looking for specific Haskell skills still at this point?
There's still specific skills at this point in time. It is really going to depend on the project need that comes through. We need people who have experience, they've got some of the scars, they've done it in the past, but of course they want to make a difference now. So we do look for experienced people. We're obviously looking to build out schemes where we'd be able to offer situations to graduates and schemes to help people develop, but we actually at the minute need people who can come in and make a difference from day one.
So what's a day in the life of Dave? Like, what do you do from morning to sundown? How does your work schedule relate to all this?
Okay, it's an interesting one, but obviously you plan your day out, and of course normally when I'm dealing with candidates and organizing things, you have a fairly tight schedule, so checking your calendars in order. Obviously catching up with messages, because I get them all across all sorts of mediums, and we use Slack across the business. Obviously we naturally have email, but then we've got social media groups. So it's just making sure people are where they should be. I'm a facilitator. That's what I do in recruitment, help facilitate and oil the cogs. So on one side I've got the candidates, on the other side I've got the hiring community, and it's just making sure I can bring them together. So once you've identified a candidate and introduced them to the process, it's making sure that process goes as smoothly as possible, not just for the candidate and their experience, but also the manager and their experience. The time is important. So for me, it's staying on top of things as much as I can, trying to get ahead of any potential problems that may come up, but obviously just making sure that people are reviewed and attend interviews and are given feedback. And of course, the correct candidates are introduced to the business.
That must make for a challenging day, because I could imagine you probably, let's say you get 10 resumes and then you screen through them and 5 people are acceptable, and then you get those people together and then you present the information to a hiring manager. What's the success rate? Like, you screen 10 resumes, you talk to 5 people, then you want to get them hired. Would you get 1 out of 10 maybe, or lower?
It's an interesting one. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of metrics about recruitment, about you should be, you say you're screening 10, you get 5, you get down, you get 2 to interview, something like that. Well, I've seen the metrics and looked at them. If you get a good person, you know you've got a good person. So you might screen 2 or 3 CVs and go, well, this is just a standout candidate. The thing when you're internal and you're working with the business, you understand what the business looks for. So you get a really good feel. So when you screen those people, there's some that won't be getting sent to the hiring community because they don't feel they've got the right blend of skills or the cultural alignment. that will match what the business is looking for. So I couldn't give you hard and fast that I send 5 CVs onto a manager and I get 3 interviews out of them. It could be I send them 2 and we get 2 interviews and we want to hire both of them. And then there's a good decision to be made, a good problem to have.
Wow. Do you have to travel a lot?
Not as yet, not as much, but I have a feeling that's going to change. We do need to expand our whole recruitment department, and getting out and attending some workshops and work fairs and conferences is very much high on the agenda, and spreading the word and the message about IOHK and why it's good to come work for us.
There are a lot of people that drop comments in my YouTube comment section from the beginning of when I started making videos saying that they're interested in working for IOHK. What is something that they can do to stand out? I know it's a very competitive field. You know, I see, is it like personal projects or a personal portfolio that could stand out for you? Or is it just like, I graduated from this school, I completed this program in high school, I'm qualified to do this? Or are you looking for someone that maybe stepped out of the box and did something very creative? Is there anything that you can say regarding this?
I mean, the things that definitely stand out for candidates is you could have someone who's a programmer, okay, they've got a degree and they've been working for X amount of years, but it's the ones then maybe who've been involved in other areas and think, like you said, a little bit outside the box. We're a business that's still growing and evolving. It's not like an IBM where you go and you're going to sit in a silo and that's you doing that. We like people who come in and can bring ideas to the table as well. Senior management is very open to that, and that's going to be a key part of how our business grows, with people bringing ideas to the table. So certainly involvement in the open source community stands out a lot for us, but naturally we like people who have blockchain and cryptocurrency knowledge and experience. Now that could come from a user. They could hold ADA, they could use a Daedalus wallet, they may hold Bitcoin or something else, but they've got an interest in it, and it's extracurriculum. It's the extra effort and input that they want to put into their learning and their development. It's not just that I can crank some code out, but of course there are other elements, not just the technical side of things. They understand the domain, as I mentioned there, but also culturally, how can they fit into the business? Every business wants to have the right fit, and it's got to be right from both sides. This isn't just saying you don't fit us. Do we fit you as well? Can we offer you something?
And you mentioned like, for example, an engineer being in a silo at IBM and having a certain delegated role. So are you implying that when you're recruiting and an individual comes and works for IOHK, they have a lot more creative control as to where their individual projects are going? Or is that too much to say?
I wouldn't say the control of the project, because the project is the project, but the fact that we're growing, and when people come into the business, if they're bringing ideas in the close involvement, we have a fairly flat structure. So a lot of people are known to others, and if someone's coming in and brings some ideas to the table, you could find that they end up moving on to a different project or into a slightly different role. So there's evolution there for them. A little bit of that comes down to the individual and the drive that they have to do that. Some people, and there's nothing wrong with it, some people like coming and doing the job that they do, and that's absolutely fine. You get that across the board. Other people come and go, well, I'm a business analyst now, I like to move into product management down the future. And that's certainly something we can offer as the business grows and we're recruiting more people and more roles become open. People can move into different areas, and that may give them the responsibility on a different project.
Interesting. And then you also previously mentioned that, of course, they would have to have some kind of interest in cryptocurrency or be related in this field. So what's your story? How did you get involved with Cardano, such a niche project? How did you get involved with cryptocurrency in general?
It's an interesting one, and unfortunately, obviously, I'm still working, so I missed the whole Bitcoin bubble and making me millions and going sitting on me beach. But I was aware of it, of course, as it blew up, and it stoked my interest. Started looking at the whole blockchain and crypto space, trying to get my head around what it was and what it would mean. Then I had a contact of mine who actually started working for IOHK, so obviously I looked at IOHK, and to be honest, I was blown away by the information on the website and the story it was telling. It just captivated me. So it wasn't just the tech side of it. There was a vision and purpose into building Cardano and what IOHK are doing, and what it would mean for millions around the world. So really, it just sort of sucked me in. So I'm not here saying I've been in it from the start and I know everything inside out, but it hooked me, and I'm here, and I'm now, and I like telling the story.
Did you meet Charles, or how did you get involved? How did you get your particular role?
Because you're the guy that hires people, right? He's the one who hires them, and he wasn't there. So how did you get there?
Yeah, well, I
That
came in via contact of mine who actually came in as part of the recruitment team as well. So he was working, and he made an introduction to the HR director for me. Now, I haven't personally met Charles yet, and the reality is because we're spread all over the place, I haven't met many people on a face-to-face basis, but I've been on a number of meetings and interviews with him. Very charismatic guy, of course, and love his vision.
What does success mean for you for this project?
Success for me? Well, I have to look purely from a resourcing side. It's getting the right people in place to the business to make a difference and deliver the project. That's the summary from my side, from my point of view. Without the right people, we won't get the project delivered.
Okay.
Do you ever go to the universities and look for entry-level programmers, or is it all more senior experienced personnel?
We are changing our focus now. I mean, we do run schemes with universities and have tie-ups. So there's a lot of work going on, obviously, about us training people with regards to Haskell programming courses as well. I think as the business continues to grow, I think we will be able to offer more opportunities for, say, graduates coming in, and I believe there's a scheme that's been discussed at the moment, and that'll be built upon, of course. But the reality is, when you've got a team there and you need to deliver, the reality is, can you bring someone in who has little commercial experience? And to be fair, is it fair to them? Because you need to dedicate the right time to onboard someone properly, give them the proper tools and educate them correctly, and bring them on board that way. You can't just get a grad and drop them in a corner and say, write me some code. Here's your, go and do some functional specification. Write me some code. And as our business continues to grow and evolve.
Okay. I have a question regarding the IOHK Careers portal. So if anyone's not familiar with this portal, you can go on the IOHK website, IOHK.io/careers, to see what job opportunities are available. And I've monitored this for the past few months, and it just seems like the demand, what you're requiring, just seems to be increasing over time. And is it difficult to find and fill all these positions?
Brings its challenges with it, yeah. But of course, that's the reality of the business that we're in and the role that I'm in. We're a very fast-moving business. We've grown very, very rapidly. In a few years, gone from a couple of people, the co-founders, up to now 140 employees across 16 countries. Don't really see the growth slowing down too much. I don't think it'll spike as much as it maybe has done in the past, but certainly there's a challenge there to keep up with the demand. And as I said before, bring the right people into the business. Anybody can recruit somebody, but it's about recruiting the right person. So that's, it takes time to do that.
So IOHK is spread across the planet pretty far. You have locations in Hong Kong, Greece, Ireland, Edinburgh, the United States. Where's the greatest demand? Where do you need programmers the most?
Typically, most of our functions are tied up around the European time zone, but it's not a solid and fast rule. Obviously, we want to recruit the best people for our positions. So if you're talking programmers specifically, to a certain extent, as long as they can tie up with our daily meetings and it's not a crazy time in the morning for them, and then it really doesn't matter. It's about getting the right person. But for other functions that we tend to have them around the European time zone, really, because we're dealing with stakeholders in the APAC region and also America. So it's got to be fair on the time zone there. But I mean, we do have people who work on projects and have come on board, and the majority of the team may be in Europe, but I know a couple of people who work in Australia, and they work out a way of working for them. We hire people who are used to working autonomously. They're self-motivated. They don't need someone watching over them and micromanaging. That's not the style at IOHK at all. Really, it's about deliverables and achieving objectives. So in a sense, if someone's going to write some code and someone's got a spec, they could write at 3 o'clock in the morning if it's suitable for them, as long as they document it and it's all ready for the rest of the team to pick up and be involved with.
Interesting. So that's a great response. So I just wanted to go back to something that you previously said when we were talking about the careers at IOHK. For everyone that's going to leave a cheeky comment in the comment section about, IOHK is going to run out of money, or they're not well funded, and, show me your paperwork and stuff like that, just go to the IOHK.io/careers website and see how many people they're trying to recruit. Now go to your other favorite cryptocurrency project and see what they're going to recruit and compare. IOHK is not running out of money anytime soon. We have recruiters on deck that are going out and getting the best of the best, and the products are being built and things are progressing. So I just wanted to leave everyone with that note. But moving forward, I wanted to ask, what is the time scale? What is your time scale as a recruiter? What do you feel like Cardano's time scale is in terms of products getting out to the masses or certain deliverables being met? What is that inflection point where you said, oh, we've produced the most amount of work that we're going to produce?
It's a very interesting question, and I think probably one that's very hard to give you a definitive answer. I mean, let's say from a recruitment perspective, I don't set deadlines or project deliverables. The work's the other way. It comes to me. We need a person to fulfill this role. This is what the plan is. This is what our roadmap is. This is where we're going to get it. We want to be released by then. There's a lot of talk at the moment with regards to Shelley and the decentralization project and ensuring that's delivered by the end of Q1 2019. So I don't dictate those. That's senior management and the product owners and the business coming together and working those out. But obviously, we want to get things out to market, but there's got to be a balance here. You don't just get something to market and look at it and go, oh well, it's okay. Let's get it out there and we'll sort of fix whatever bugs as we go along, because you need a good consumer experience. Of course, we're building a brand here, and as the ecosystem grows as well, people want to get engaged and work within it. But of course, there's the other element of it. You can sit and polish something till the cows come home and not release anything because you want to make it so perfect. So there's got to be a happy medium that you find between that. And as I'm sitting here in my lowly recruitment role, I'm not sure specifically what the answer is for that, but there has to be a tipping point that it comes to, and you go, that is 99% ready. Let's release it to market. We're confident about it. We're not just putting it in market for the sake of putting it out there. We have belief and confidence. We've been through all our testing processes and the development cycles are done, and it's out there.
Obviously, you need a lot of people because there are 21 job listings on that careers portal that Philippe just mentioned to, and that's just the 21 that are out there that are highest demand. I'm assuming there's other jobs that are like, well, we need to fill this role, but we'll get to that one later. We'll keep our ears open. That's what a lot of times people run into. Do you do primarily technical recruiting? Do you ever do non-technical? Like there's jobs on there for filmographers or graphic design. Okay, now that's a good example. Like, does graphic design fall under technical recruiter, or is there another recruiter that takes care of that aspect?
No, we're both technical recruiters is our title. But you're right. I mean, it's interesting ones you touch upon there. There are a number of roles on there, and I've already had 2 or 3 heads up about roles that are coming up. You tend to find this happens, and people start talking and going, wow, how about this? We do this project. Okay, well, so who do we need for that? Here's a heads up. We're going to be looking for X, Y, and Z. Be aware. We're going to get a formalized spec before we release it. But the business gives us a little bit of a nod and said this is coming down the line. With regards to the roles you mentioned there, I'm actually recruiting the UI UX designer position at the moment as well. I'm the filmographer, to film development researcher. It's a very interesting angle that one's coming from. But I suppose in a short response to your question, no, we don't just focus on technical roles because the business has a need wider than that. Just typically, as being an engineering company, most of our roles have a technical element to them, but you could look at other areas, like you say, UI, UX. Community management would be an area that we've looked at as well. Business development, I'm sure, will grow and increase on that side as well. So no, there's a balance across the business.
I understand. There are also a lot of people that are not software engineers. They can't develop in Haskell, but they would love to work at IOHK. They feel like they can contribute something to IOHK. They would do anything just to work at IOHK, to tell you the truth. So is there any advice that you could give to these people? I know that it's very early in the project and we are building the technical nature of IOHK, but do you see that nature changing over time towards maybe another field as products are released, as code is developed? Or do you think that IOHK and the Cardano project will always remain 100% technical in nature, or mainly technical in nature?
I don't say we're going to get away from being mainly technical, but of course you talk about IOHK, which is the engineering side of the business. I mean, we've got Cardano Foundation and Emergo as well, which are all part of the ecosystem. I'm confident that as all three businesses grow and the entity increases in size, there will be other roles that come in there. I couldn't tell you exactly what they look like at the moment because, of course, they'll be shaped as they come out. But we talk about some of the non-technical roles. But if someone's technical and they want to be involved with IOHK, I can understand the frustration if they're sitting there going, I want to come and work for you. Give me a shot. Give me a chance. And look, people do get opportunities. But I think one thing that would help on that side, we're a fully open source business. GitHub accounts are there. Loads of information available about us. So people can start becoming a contributor on the open source projects. And we've hired a number of people who've actually been involved as contributors, and it's got to a point, and we've seen the work they've done and the involvement they've had, and we've had a conversation. Well, look, how would you feel about this? You've been contributing, you've been having some input there, maybe on a part time or whatever you could around their other job. How about you come and work for us full time? And people are part of the business now, and they've been here for a good length of time. So that's probably the best thing I could say at this moment in time, because we do take everybody's application seriously as well. Now, where there's time constraints, we can't always turn around and give people a response within a day or something because of obviously what we're doing. But we do have a recruitment at IOHK.io email address if someone's interested. If there's a role that's not on the website but they want to register their interest for work for IOHK, they're more than welcome to send the details in, and we can keep a hold of them there. And if something comes up, we can come back to them and maybe just have a conversation about suitability at that point in time.
So even if there isn't a job description on there that fits someone's profile, it's still a good idea to apply in case that need arises or something. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily. Certainly send us the details, but if there's say for argument's sake, we don't have a product management job spec on there. I know we do have, but say for argument's sake we didn't have. Someone could just send us an email to recruitment@iohk.io, or they could contact us through LinkedIn. We've got all our social media channels. So I have a number of people who contact me on LinkedIn and say, I saw your job posting. That's not me. But this is me. Are you interested? And I can keep a hold of the details. We can have a bit of a conversation, and I know they're there for future reference. But of course, what you realise as well, when people are looking actively for a job, in a month's time when we do have a need, they might not be around because they've moved on to something else. So.
Yeah. Is it okay if we put links to that careers portal on this video down in the description section?
Please do.
Okay, that'd be helpful. And also with a lot of people, a lot of cryptos or some cryptos out there, they're laying people off. Are you starting to see an influx? Because IOHK is hiring, and there's a few cryptos doing well in hiring. There's some laying them off. Are you seeing an influx of applicants coming from other crypto industry?
There are an increase in number, and I'm talking to a number of people who are at other organisations as well. It's an interesting one, and just to touch on the point Philippe mentioned earlier with regards to the monetary element of it and the longevity of IOHK and the revenue stream. It's one of the biggest questions I'm getting at the moment from candidates. As soon as there was a bit of a dip in the crypto market and people start having lost a little bit of confidence, like, oh, what's going to happen here now? And you're right, there's a number of crypto companies out there that are laying people off. Consensus had a press release there that they weren't afraid to lay people off and make changes to the business, and that's fine. That's their business model. But what I can say at IOHK, nobody's going off, and Charles has gone on record on screen and said this as well. There's nobody getting laid off from here. All we're in growth mode. We're growing, and we've got actually a bigger story to tell than just we're here. We're a crypto company. We've done an ICO. We've got a direction and vision to our business, and that's what's going to keep us going through this.
That sounds very re-encouraging, especially since we've been in a bear market for a year plus. So that's a good sign. If you're doing well in the worst of times, just imagine when things turn around. So you touched on the Cardano Foundation and Emergo. Do you communicate with the technical recruiters over there, or? I mean, mainly Emergo. I don't think there are technical recruiters for the Cardano Foundation, if I'm not mistaken.
No.
So are you all on different paths and then you converge, or there's no communication as to who you're hiring and what direction you're going?
No, there is communication. I was probably going back a little while. It's improved since then, but certainly I'm in close communication with the CTO at Emergo. and obviously our HR director is in communication with all the key parties as well. So yeah, we're all together in this. So we do have communication. We do help each other out, and that's part of being in a partnership. You can do that between each other. So yeah, we have a vision. We have an understanding what each business unit requires, and if we can help out each other at that point in time, then we do.
That's good to hear. That's good teamwork, because if someone were to apply to IOHK and they're very talented, but you don't have a spot for them, maybe there's a spot at Emergo and you can say, hey, we could use you over there. Or maybe the Cardano Foundation would need that type of talent, and then you can pass them in that direction as well. That's good to hear.
Absolutely. We'd love to have them as part of the ecosystem. No point in saying we haven't got anything, thank you very much, and shutting the door. No, there's more to it than that.
I have a question for you. So what are your biggest challenges as a technical recruiter, or your biggest challenges that you have faced since joining the IOHK team?
Making the day longer. It's just one of those things. Time is precious and everybody's busy. That's probably one of the biggest challenges, because the way the business is growing and how quickly everything moves, can we have them tomorrow? But that's typical of any business that would ask of any recruiter. I need them now. Okay, well, we'll do the very best we can to get them to you as quickly as possible. So that's the biggest challenge, really. There's no getting around it. I mean, we know we need people in the business, but we're not going to hire just for the sake of hiring, because that is detrimental. That can have such a bad effect. There's no need. There's no point. So that's probably the biggest challenge, because when you've got a business of the size and the project's ongoing and everybody has needs at the same time, how do you prioritize whose need is more important than not? They're all important. So you just have to work through it as fast as you possibly can.
One of Cardano's main pillars is helping the unbanked migrate into the new financial stack of the new world. So we spoke with John. I'm not sure it was episode 4, the early episodes of the Cardano Effect podcast. And we know that according to the Twitter, Lars is over there in Africa right now with John, I believe. And they're working on a Haskell course for Ethiopian and Ugandan students. So my question from a technical recruiting side, when Cardano is working in these areas that may not have as many resources or are servicing the unbanked population, what is your role as a technical recruiter? Are you communicating with certain regions, or does that become global if you were to say, I'm going to take this developer from Ethiopia and bring them on to IOHK? How does that work?
I'll be perfectly honest with you, at this moment in time, I couldn't give you a definitive answer. My focus is on the live roles that we've got. I know there are initiatives, as you discussed there, about helping build up knowledge and experience and people that could be brought into the business or into the ecosystem. I think generally part of it is about just helping as well and reaching out. Say one of the goals is the developing nations and how Cardano can make a difference to those financial markets, but also wider than that, in the supply chain market and the application of blockchain technology. So it's not going to happen overnight either, of course, because you can provide training to people, but once you finish the training, that doesn't make them an expert. There's other things that need to happen beyond there, and unfortunately, the way things are going at the moment, I'm not 100% or even 1% involved in that, so I couldn't give you any more answers, I'm afraid.
So, Dave, I have a question about where do you get the most successful applicants? Do you find them on LinkedIn? Do they submit the resume on your website? Do they knock on your door? How do you get them?
Okay, it's an interesting question. There's not actually one avenue that yields the best result. It depends on the type of role you're looking to fill, to be perfectly honest with you. But obviously, we advertise on a website and promote that on all the social media channels as well, which leads to applicants. But for some instances, such as developers, say Haskell developers, that tends to come from maybe referrals, because they're in that ecosystem, they work together, and someone joins IOHK and then they turn around and say, hey, there's a position here, I worked with you in the past, are you interested? So referrals are always a good one, but naturally, you say promoting our jobs on social media, using some specialist job boards as well, and the reality is we have some connection with specialized recruiters as well who do some work in the market for us and send us candidates to consider.
So you never have to use a headhunter to get people, or you got enough talent pool coming in?
There's been some that have been used in the past for some niche roles. That was probably a little bit more in the early days, but we're moving the reliance upon external agencies where we still have partnerships that we work with and value. There are other avenues that we say we pipeline, do some resource management and look at the pipeline and potential skills and profiles that we may need down the line. So then obviously we can come back to them and pick that up if that role does become live.
That sounds good. Going on a completely different tangent, I'm not sure if this question is more of a personal question again. So in the community, in crypto community, I don't know how involved you are with the communities on like forums and on Twitter and on YouTube, but there's this whole meme that goes around in the cryptocurrency community, when moon, so I wanted to ask you, what's your moon vision for Cardano?
That is an interesting one, and I do pay attention to the groups. I look at them on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter, and I suppose Facebook's easier when you just pick up on your phone and have a little flick through, but obviously there's things on Reddit there as well. Define moon. Interesting one. Do you think anybody defined moon when Bitcoin started and then it got to where it got? Did they sit there and look and go, we're X amount of cents now? Oh, we're at $1, we're at $10, we're at $40, we're at $100. Whose moon was that? That was somebody's moon at that point in time. And then obviously it went on to get into the thousands, and I think the tipping point was $19,500 a coin. Whose moon was that? Or was that, what expectation did someone have? It's a very, very difficult one to actually put a figure on. Really don't know where it could end up. I mean, it's strange watching Bitcoin go through where it's gone, and now it's obviously dipped down, and the talk about the whole market is taking a hit. So I don't think I can give you an answer. I suppose if people are looking from an investment side of things, purely an investment, they're looking going, oh, moon's coming, but what does it mean to that individual? That's what I suppose what I'm saying at the end of the day. We're all very different. I mean, my moon could be $100. I've got some here that could say, well, $100 is my moon. I'll be quite happy with that. Someone else could be sitting at home going, well, when it hits $1,000, that's when it's my moon. So it is a very personal one, and not one I can give you a definitive answer for anybody else.
Well, Dave, that's a great perspective, because if someone's moon was at 18,000, that means someone else bought it at 18,000. So their moon is a long way off. So the moon is relative. I like that answer. I learned from that. That was good. And Philippe had mentioned earlier, you do see people, I talk to people on Telegram a lot, and people are concerned with the bear market going down and saying, they would ask questions like, is IOHK funded? Because there's other cryptos that were closing shop because of the bear market. They were closing up development because of the bear market. And I guess all the revenues depended on that. And IOHK is not having that problem. I mean, that's been well advertised already, maybe a bear market, but I guess the business plan and management, it must be really good, because you're still hiring, websites full of openings.
Absolutely. And if you look at the roadmap as well, it's, we're in the relatively early stages. There's a 5-year roadmap there, and then I'm sure there'll be another one written beyond that as we keep growing and building and evolving. So we're not in this for a quick buck. Certainly, everybody's in the business. We see there's more of a purpose being part of IOHK rather than, we work for a cryptocurrency company, we're going to make some money and all the rest of it. But there's obviously been a lot of cryptos that have come up, had an ICO, raised a lot of funds, they've splashed the cash around the place, they haven't had a definitive business model behind them, so this is great, we can just go make some money. And then say the bear market hits and go, that's shut that door, we're all closed off now. We're looking at longevity, sustainability and growth. So it's not a short-term plan or gain for us.
We're getting to the tail half of our segment, so yeah. I don't know if you wanted to move to the Reddit questions, and maybe we can run through those.
Yeah, I'll go to the Reddit questions, because this podcast has, Dave, you've been great. It's been moving along at a really good pace, and I got to tell you, I think you've answered more questions in such a short amount of time than anybody else. Usually it's not this intense of a grilling, but you're a real champ. You've been hanging in there.
Yes.
This is what I call.
If that's a good or a bad thing.
It's good.
You set the world record on the Cardano effect. We've gotten the most questions out. Yes, for sure.
Yes. We didn't mean to do that to you, but you're a champ. Okay, so
okay.
I'm on the Reddit questions. Okay, so the first one is from Reddit user Trade Feeds. And his question is, how long does it take to train a dev to develop on Cardano? Once someone is trained, who hires them, if anyone? So the first question there was, how long does it take to train a dev to develop on Cardano?
I'll try and answer it as best I can, but there's various different development areas within Cardano. So one question back from me is, are you talking just a Haskell developer, talking a Scala developer, or someone who knows Rust, or JavaScript developer who's developing on the Daedalus wallet, which is still tied into Cardano? It depends on their background. Is it a graduate that's coming in, or is it someone that's cross-training? Maybe they've got some functional programming experience and they're moving across, that they may pick it up a little bit quicker. And again, once someone is trained, who hires them, if anybody will, I'd have to understand a little bit more what they mean from that point of view. If you talk about some training programs that maybe the IOHK are running.
So you would have a dialogue with the manager who needs that person and say, okay, yeah, they meet the requirements to, 80% of the requirements. So that's a good start, maybe.
Yeah, it does come down to it. It depends on the size of the team. If you've got a decent team size and you can, for want of a better term, you can absorb someone coming to the team where you can give them a bit of time and dedication to help them. That's going to make the biggest difference. As we mentioned earlier, no point hiring a grad just sitting someone in a corner going, there you go. It doesn't add any value. It doesn't help at all. So it depends really on the individual at the time point. If someone's trying to come from an object-oriented background, say they use C# or something, and then they go, I'm just going to go and learn Haskell, can you give me a job? There's obviously a bigger learning curve there, a whole mentality shift to understand functional programming language. But they may have other skills in there, and naturally you want to have part of the team. So it comes down to the individual. So I've answered it, but I don't think I've answered it.
Oh, I think you've answered it, because a lot of the questions that we see here and on the forums is people are asking, what do you need to learn? So the questions people have is not how do you recruit me, but how do I understand Haskell so I can go do that kind of work? I think that's why we see a lot of that. And you being a technical recruiter, you're the closest guy we got to being able to answer that. So anything would be helpful.
I also have a follow-up question to that. How daunting is it for a new developer to come on the team? I know the project's open source. Is it constant communication with the manager in that particular department to catch them up to speed, or are there manuals being written and it's like, here's your manual, let's catch up? And does it become harder and harder as the project progresses to get people on because they're so far back that they have so much material to catch up on?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. And I suppose if you're looking at someone, and you're right, it's great. If you set a project team and we've got nothing in flight at that time, you can bring the team together and you can discuss what the project's about, and everybody gets off on the right foot and they start developing. But when a project's in flight and you're bringing someone else into it, it does have its own problems. But you have to make sure they're done right. And it's interesting you mentioned on there, I mean, we do have an onboarding process of course, we do have a lot of close interaction, because while we're remote, I mentioned this, with the functions being grouped in relative time zones, we use Google Hangouts and Slack for strong communication. So there's naturally daily stand-ups and meetings that go on. There's a lot of documentation available across the business as well, of course, but you have to do it right. There's no point hiring someone, as good as they are, if they come in and you just go, right, off you go in the corner and they don't talk to anybody. For one, it's not going to add any value to the project, but it's not going to add any value or help that individual coming on either. So the whole exercise becomes pointless. So when we bring someone into a project, yes, there's going to be a steep enough learning curve, as you mentioned, if the project's in flight and there's a lot of documentation there. We can provide them all the documentation. It's just going to take a little something in themselves to obviously be able to go through the documentation. We also have them time to do that as well. You can't give them all the documentation. But have a read of those couple of hundred pages, and we'll catch up tomorrow about it, because they're not going to get through and absorb it. But also, they're going to need to read the documentation, and then probably talk to someone about it as well who's in the project. There may be areas just want a bit of clarification on a field to feel comfortable with. So you have to take that on board when you're hiring new people to come on, and make sure the onboarding process is done properly and correct.
All right. Thank you, Dave. And also thank you, Reddit user Trade Feeds, for that excellent question and Philippe's follow-up. Our next Reddit question is from user Audi2053. Some of this question has been touched on, but this is a very well-framed question, so I want to make sure that we have it captured correctly. What Audi2053 asks is that IOHK is planning to train 10,000 devs to program in Haskell and Plutus, which of course isn't easy to learn and master, emphasis on the word master. Learning programming and doing a responsible job, i.e. smart contracts, are two entirely different things. Good point, that is. Do you think, so here's where the question is, do you think the ecosystem has enough and qualified developers to write smart contracts and keep the ecosystem going, or does the number not matter at this point?
It's certainly a very interesting question. You're looking at Haskell, smart contracts. So I think I can probably relate more to some of the conversation we had earlier, and take away Haskell, take away smart contracts. It's all about teaching someone a programming language. We talked about graduates coming in, they're learning, they're doing their own work, they're doing the coursework. They don't then just turn up to a company and be able to write the same level of code as obviously people with commercial longevity and commercial experience have. So there's always going to be a transition and time frame it takes for people to think they've learned something, and as the user asked there, how to master it. Master it's just going to take a bit of time, but what is that time for one person? They could feel they've mastered it in a year. Other people could feel after 3 years I've mastered it. So we'll come back to the Haskell side of things, and smart contracts, obviously very important to our business. And talk about the ecosystem. We mentioned earlier, it's not just IOHK, there's Cardano Foundation and Emergo as well. There are going to be more initiatives like this and to grow and build our ecosystem and connect with people and ask what they want and what can we add, what features, what functions, and get them to play an active part in that. So I can't give a definitive answer on that one, but everything's got to start somewhere, and it's got to build, and it's got to build in the right way. And of course, we want to get it started and keep the momentum going behind it. There'll be an evolution of that as it comes out. But when I deal with people in recruitment, someone will say to me, and they have said to me, and I'll use the term master, they probably say I'm an expert, but I'm a master of blockchain. Okay. Yeah. What's your definition of being a master? Everybody, again, we talk about the moon. It's what's your perception and our perception? Are they in sync, or is it just? It's happened across the years. Some people think they're the best of the best, and I'm not knocking them at all, because a lot of people have been very good developers. But when you're lying to your own business and you go through an interview process, and you have technical screening and technical interviews and technical tests, we don't see. It might be at the end of it. You go, well, you think you're a master, but unfortunately we don't. So it's a very relative question.
Unfortunately, that's the case for so many different fields. The people that think that they're the masters are usually the people that need the most improvement. I mean, it's just, you can relay that to anything, whether it be sports or whether it be school or whether it be developing. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you want to add on to that, Rick, but I'm sure that's an issue.
During the interview process, do you have them write the code, or show me the code? Because Professor Duncan Coots, he's like, show me the evidence. So do you have them provide evidence of code or proof of work? They can actually code.
Yeah, well, mentioned we're an open source business, so if anybody be involved in the open source community and they have examples of the work, the GitHub account that can send those, of course, we're very interested in looking at those and running through them. But some of the roles we recruit, the department heads have put together some technical tests, and it may be nothing too crazy now or expect a week's worth of work or anything put into it, but there'll be maybe a scenario set, some criteria around it. Can you write a little exercise? And then that exercise is reviewed and discussed, because the thing with software engineering, there's no one way to do things. That's the thing. There's obviously multiple ways to achieve things, but it's understanding the mindset. Why did you do it that way? What was your thought process? Okay, so in our team, we do it this way. This is the reason why we think that. Well, okay, you've got an interesting idea there. Tell me more about it. There's got to be that dialogue goes there. There's not one size fits all. But there's got to be enough there in the backbone to understand the language and its boundaries, especially when you're evaluating things as well. We've got Haskell, obviously a big language in the business, but our Rust team has increased in size as well. And Charles has openly gone out on social media and talked about this. Did I make the right decision in choosing Haskell as a language or as Rust? And that's probably a conversation that will still go on a bit about which direction do we go forward in. Which one's the right one and why is it right? It invokes so many questions around it.
Wow, that's amazing. So the engineering decisions are going to affect the recruiting decisions and so on and so on. You know, nobody works in a vacuum.
Yeah, but the fortunate thing as well, of course, when you talk about those languages, is if you know Haskell, you can probably learn Rust. Now, it's a question if you want to, and conversely, you go on the other, because we do have people in the business who are very skilled in Haskell and Rust. Mentioned the example earlier, it's not like someone's coming from C#, so an object-oriented language, and going all of a sudden learn a functional language like Haskell. Concepts. I'm not saying it can't be done, but there's a lot of concepts, and there's a longer time frame for that to happen.
All right, so last question, and then we'll wrap up the episode here. This is from Reddit user Random Feedback. I love these usernames. Random Feedback asks, I understand that IOHK had to let go of their first round of Haskell contractors. The decision to be pragmatic seems to have a blessing and a curse at the same time. And I believe he's talking about the question here is referring to the Sarah Kell and IOHK parting, which was a graceful shutdown. They parted ways in a graceful manner. It wasn't not a biggie. And so the question that the user has is, I assume you evaluate who to hire or contract. So how do you evaluate who would qualify for you to onboard as an employee or contractor? It seems to me the pool you have to draw from may be somewhat exhausted, or are highly qualified Haskell developers coming to you?
Interesting question, and some of what you're asking there was before my time within the business, so I have no knowledge of it, so it would be wrong of me to even speculate around it. But with regards to hiring highly qualified Haskell developers, we still have people coming to us. We don't think we employ every Haskell developer in the world at the moment. It was mentioned that we hire people and look for skills where they could cross-train as well. So there's people who have an understanding, maybe want to learn Haskell, and they show an aptitude for it, and we'll help them with that. I mean, across the business as well, we run internal Haskell training courses. We send people on Haskell training courses. Our QA team have been on a Haskell training course to get them up to speed on that side of things. So there's still people coming, but I mean, we mentioned earlier, technical direction of the business. Haskell's not going anywhere, but our other areas going to increase in size depending on what the project need is at that point in time. Is that technology suitable for that project?
All right. Well, thank you, Dave. I appreciate it. I also would like to thank our Reddit users for their input. It's always very much appreciated. And before we start to wrap up here, I want to remind people that this podcast is available on audio only on Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes, and Google Play Music. I've been putting it out as Google Play, but you have to specifically go to Google Play Music. And we're also now available on Radio Public and many different apps. So, Philippe, do you have anything you want to do to wrap? Do you have anything you want to say before we wrap up here, sir?
Yes. So thank you, everyone. Thank you to Reddit. Thank you for all the supporters. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel. We're getting a lot of viewers, and just hit the subscribe link. It's going to increase our SEO ranking and allow for this podcast to get out to the masses for those that are just getting involved in cryptocurrency or want to learn more about the Cardano project. I wanted to thank David for giving us the opportunity to speak to him today. It was an honor. And David, we're wrapping this episode up. So if you wanted to have a final words, that's fine. If not, we're just going to end the episode. So thank you again, everyone. David, the floor is yours.
Great. Well, look, Rick and Philippe, thanks very much for inviting me on. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Yes, of course, if anybody's interested in a role with IOHK, our careers site is there. Careers portal is available. Also, you can connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. So if you're interested in a position we'd like to discuss more, please do get in touch, send us your details, and we can try and have a conversation about suitability.
All right. Thank you, David. Bye, everyone.
Thanks very much. Take care, guys.